Glad everybody's here today. I wanted to introduce our speaker. Steve Goode has been a Bologna resident since '93 and a Faulkner County resident since 1990. He and his wife of 28 years, Christy, have 3 children, Reagan, Grace, and Andrew. Steve was appointed to the office of Director of Arkansas Tobacco Control by Governor Asa Hutchinson in January of 2015. He also serves on the Quorum Court as the District 3 JP. That's my district. Steve from over in Bologna. Steve and Christy own 2 supermarkets, one in Russellville and one in Clinton. He's also a partner in Cypress Valley Meat Company, which is a USDA processor located in Romance, Hot Springs. And what Steve forgot to mention was that he is also the voice of the Eagles on Friday night. So anytime you go through Bologna, when you hear a loudspeaker voice, that would be Steve. So, welcome, Steve.
Thank you very much. I want hoop and holler here today like we do on Friday night sometime in Bologna. We only hoop and holler when things are going very good or going very bad. And unfortunately, the hooping and hollering over the last several years in football has been because they've been going very bad. Well, I want to thank y'all for having me today. It's a true honor for me to come and speak with you today. Many of you I know. As I look out across here, I've got a fellow Quorum Court member in here, ex-colleague at Axiom in my brief tenure there. My banker is here, and he's who makes sure I get out of bed every morning and goes to work so that I can make sure I pay him back. I've got a Bible study friend here, and then a Sunday school class colleague here. So there are quite a few friends here. There are several of you that I don't know, and it would be my honor to get to know you a little better today and in the future. You ever heard about the guy that his parents named him Odd when he was born? His parents obviously loved him very much to name him Odd, and he goes through his whole life and being called Odd. And as he got on in later years, he made his wife promise him one thing. He said, I've gone through my whole life being called Odd. And he said, when I die, please do not put that on my tombstone. So she agreed, and he passed away, and they put the tombstone up, and as you would go into the cemetery, there would be nothing on the tombstone. But there would be a grave there. And so people would look at that tombstone and that grave, and they'd say, well, isn't that odd? And it certainly was. Those are just a little bit better than yours there. Not much, but just a little. Well, it's very odd how I got to be where I am today. Like Trace said, Christy and my wife and I, we own 2 supermarkets, one in Russellville, one in Clinton, and then I own a meat processor. Matter of fact, if you ate that chicken and rice today, or if you ate that meatloaf today, those came from, we actually, this restaurant is one of the restaurants that we service through our meat processor. We service Whole Foods, which is a large, very high-end grocery store supermarket. We service them with their pork in Texas. So we're a little boutique processor in Romance and Hot Springs with those 2 things. And then we process deer in Bologna as well. And then, like I said, we own supermarkets. And the supermarket industry is actually where I found out about Arkansas Tobacco Control. They regulate the supermarket industry. People from Arkansas Tobacco Control come into supermarkets and make sure that as retailers that we're buying our tobacco from a licensed wholesaler, that we're not smuggling tobacco in, and I'll finish up my talk a little bit about that. And the biggest thing that our agency does is we make sure that Tobacco Control makes sure that retailers don't sell to minors. That's a big thing. I don't know how many of you smoke or how many of you use tobacco, but studies show that if that starts early in life, then chances are it's going to continue in life. So I'll be brief in my remarks today, but it was very odd how I ended up at Tobacco Control. I met our governor on the campaign trail. Like Trace said, I'm on the Quorum Court. Met him on the campaign trail. We had a couple of events that we were at the same time. And I think what the governor was looking for in somebody to run some of the agencies that he had that were going to be open was somebody that did not come from a governmental background. Somebody that came from a business background. to bring business principles into the state government. And that's one of the things that we've done. We have 3 simple rules at my agency, each and every day. Do right, don't embarrass the governor, and remember that we work for the taxpayer of Arkansas. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've had immediate success, is because we realize that as an agency, we work for you, not the other way around. I started on the same day as the governor, started January 13th of 2015. I serve at his pleasure. He could call me when I get through today, and if I violate that rule number 2, don't embarrass the governor, he could call me at any time and say, Steve, I appreciate your service, but I'm going to look for somebody else. So my tenure is at his pleasure. Our agency was created in 1997, and again, it was created with its primary mission was to regulate the sale to minors, to enforce all tobacco laws and rules, and to work with manufacturers, wholesalers, and retailers to make sure that they were following those rules. I knew about that. I knew about the not selling to minors, and I knew about the not selling to, or not having a permit. I knew about those as retailers. The thing that I really didn't know about was the smuggling that was going on in the state of Arkansas. My eyes have really been opened in the last 15 months since I've been there. Our agency has 28 employees, and we currently have 5 of those that are dedicated to making sure that your tax dollars are being collected by retailers who are turning around and selling it to the general public. Does anybody in here know what the pack tax rate is on a pack of cigarettes? Any smokers in here? It's a bunch. Yeah, it's a bunch.
No, I mean, I've heard.
Yeah, she heard. Well, if you smoke and you buy a pack of cigarettes in the state of Arkansas, I don't know what that pack's going to cost you. It's going to vary by where you buy it at, but that $1.15 of that pack is a tax. Now, let me give you some comparisons to some surrounding states. Tennessee's pack tax is 62 cents. Mississippi's is 68. Thank goodness for Louisiana, they just raised theirs to $1.08. But Missouri's is 17 cents. Now, if you're an unscrupulous retailer and you're up on the boot hill, you're in the boot hill just south of there, or you're anywhere along that Missouri border, Bella Vista, all the way to the northwest corner, what's the temptation going to be for you to get an extra $1 a pack profit on every cigarette that you sell? Well, for some, that temptation is too great. But the great thing about cigarettes is they actually have a tax stamp on them. So my agents can walk into a retailer and they can pretty well identify, you know what, you're violating the law. We're going to confiscate those cigarettes. We're going to fine you, and we're going to encourage you not to do that again. Matter of fact, if you do it again, we're really going to encourage you not to do it again by a bigger fine. And if you do it the 3rd time, we're going to encourage you so much we're going to take your tobacco permit from you. The problem is not with cigarettes, because again, those are easily identifiable. The problem is with what we call OTP, or other tobacco products. If you chew tobacco, or you dip snuff, or Skoal, or Copenhagen, or any of those, the tax rate on those in Arkansas is 68%. So well over half of the cost of that package or container that you partake in is taxed. Well, we can't say thank God for Mississippi, because their tax rate's only 15%. And Tennessee's is only 6.6%. So there is a much greater temptation for retailers to drive to Memphis, to go to one of the wholesalers that's willing to sell them illegal tobacco products, to load their cars up, and to come back to Arkansas and sell it in their stores. It's such a bad problem that we estimate around $50 million a year of untaxed tobacco is being sold in the state of Arkansas. Now, I can tell you there's 2 or 3 different categories that's doing this. Some, it's so sinister that they are actually using it to send money back over to the Middle East to fight us. That we have people that we're investigating right now that we're pretty sure that's where their money is. That's a big problem in the northeast part of the country too, where illegal cigarette sales are going to fund terrorism in the Middle East. It's such a problem. You know what an 18-wheeler of cigarettes bought in Virginia sold in New York, what the profit on one 18-wheeler is? Any guesses? Somebody guess.
2 million.
1 million. $1 million. You can buy a 18-wheeler worth of 18-wheeler load of cigarettes in Virginia, take them to New York City, and if you can find the right buyer, either mafia or Middle Eastern, that's willing to buy them from you, your profit can be $1 million. Folks, that's scary. A sedan, just your regular Chevy Impala, if you load the trunk up with that, that's about $50,000. Now, Bob's back there contemplating a career change. I know what he's doing. But that's what we face. So you have that aspect of it. We stopped a sweet little couple that owned a package store over in East Arkansas, though, about 3 or 4 months ago. And they had gone to a wholesaler in Memphis, had come back and spent part of the day at Southland, helping coax the dogs around the track. And they got back to their store, and we knew that they had illegal tobacco, so we went in and we confiscated that. And their response was, we're just doing this to get by. We're just doing this to get by. We would not make it without that extra 60% profit. And I'm a pretty sympathetic guy, and I almost wanted to believe them and buy into that until we called back to Little Rock and had them run their tobacco permit number. And when you believe it, that 8 years previous, they got caught doing the exact same thing, and their excuse was the exact same thing. We're just doing it to get by. We won't make it. But they managed to make it 8 years. So that's a real problem that we face. It's been a challenging 15 months. If any of you have ever dealt with state government, the legislative session last year was very eye-opening. The governor challenged me to pass a vapor bill. If any of you know about the new vapor cigarettes, and there's several vapor stores in town, the governor challenged me to pass a vapor bill that would make it where our children could not have access to that, where we would get a little enforcement on vapor products. And I learned my lesson on something. I went and I literally talked to all 34 of the 35 senators. At the time, Senator Standridge had been voted in, but he was not sworn in yet. He took Senator Lamoureux's place, who became the chief of staff. So there were 34 senators. There were 100 House members. I spoke to each and every one. On the Senate side, I was told by 19 of them, yes, we'll be for your bill. I was told by 3 more, look, we really don't want to vote for your bill, but if it gets right down to it, I'll vote for it because it needs to pass. And these were some ultra-conservatives that did not want to be seen as being in favor of a regulatory agency. But they knew that we needed the bill. On the House side, I got promises from 78 House members that they would be for my bill. It passed through the Senate with 19 votes, just like they said it would. The 19 that promised me that they would vote for it, voted for it. It got to the House side, and we passed with 51 votes. Somehow 27 House members changed their mind between the time that I looked them in the face and they promised me they would vote for my bill, and we got to the roll call. So I learned a lot. I learned a lot then. It's been very interesting. It's been challenging, but it's been enjoyable. Well, I want to finish up with a little challenge to you. One of the things at our state agency that I've changed the mindset there, I think of, is that we are truly a service agency. We need to realize that we serve the taxpayers of Arkansas. Leroy is on the Quorum Court with me, and one of the things that I think that we do well is we realize that we serve the taxpayer of Faulkner County on the Quorum Court. So that's kind of a mantra I live by, and the reason this is what I live by is because I grew up in the grocery business. And customer service is the only thing that I have to offer that the big retailers like Walmart and Kroger don't. They're going to beat me day in and day out on size. They're not going to beat me on price. They're certainly not going to beat me on quality of meat and produce. And we're not going to let them beat us on customer service. So we brought that attitude to the state agency that I'm in. But I want to challenge you that in your life, that it's all about who you're serving. In your prayer, you talked about service, and I appreciate that. I want to finish up with a little story. I want to tell you a story today, and this will tie in also to your joke about the reincarnation. I want to tell you a little story today about a man named Jed. See, he was a poor mountaineer, and he barely kept his family fed. Until one day, he was shooting up some food, and up through the ground came a bubbling crude. Now, the younger ones in here, I've lost. Y'all are now. You're looking at me like, what in the mess is this guy talking about? The older ones, y'all are still with me. Well, up through the ground came a bubbling crude, black gold, Texas tea. Well, you know, the first thing you know, old Jed, he's a millionaire. And his kinfolk said, Jed, you need to move away from there. Said California is the place you ought to be, so they loaded up his truck and they moved to Beverly. Well, what's the moral of that story? Anybody? What was it? Shoot a lot, okay? That's not a bad moral. Well, the gist of that story is that Jed's a millionaire. But here's the question I want to ask you. When did Jed become a millionaire?
When people bought the oil.
When people bought the oil. Okay? That's one answer.
When you bought the land.
When he bought the land. That's the way I think it is. Jed became a millionaire when he bought the land. Now here's the deal though. It was an untapped resource at that time. So my challenge to you is, Faulkner County is uniquely rich. Uniquely rich. One of the things that we've seen with the recent shale play downturn is that even though that's an asset that's in the ground, and at times it can be high, and at times it can be low. And it's very low right now. But Faulkner County's best asset, this state's best asset, is not the natural gas that's in the ground. You know, what's our state motto? We actually have two. One's land of opportunity, but the other one is what? The natural state. And see, I think our state, I think our county, I think this city, I think the little city of Bologna that I live in, I think our best resource is not what lies in the ground, but you. It's our people. We have a huge untapped resource in our community. You all sitting in this room, each of you have something to give, above and beyond what you already do. And let me tell you something. Don't say, well, I'm busy. I'm too busy to give. I'm going to talk to you about busy. Typically, my day in Little Rock's 8 to 4:30. Unless my kids have a ball game, it's to Clinton or Russellville until 8:30 or 9 at night. Then it's home to spend an hour and a half or so with my wife. Then it's back up the next day to do the same thing. So I know you may be busy. I know you may say, you know, I don't have time to serve, but each of you can give a little bit. And your community needs it. Your community needs it. It's what makes us successful. So here's the challenge to you as I sit down for today. Don't let your asset remain below the surface. Get out, be like old Jed, realize that you're rich, and give back to this great community that you live in. Thank y'all for having me today very much. I guess we've got a little time. I didn't think anybody had any questions about tobacco control, about corn cord, about anything. Yes, sir.
Why are our taxes so high? It looks like if we lowered them, we wouldn't have this smuggling problem.
Well, that's one of the things. I'm glad you asked. That's one of the things the governor's allowing me to work on right now. It can't happen in this session that starts today or started yesterday because it's a fiscal only session, but the governor's allowing me to do a study. And I really think that when we get the study done, that it will show if we will lower ours to match some of the surrounding states. Now, I don't think we'll ever be able to get it all the way down to the 6% that Tennessee is, but I think we can get it into the mid-30s. And I do think exactly what you said. If we lower them, the revenue won't change. It'll be a revenue neutral. So the governor's allowing me to work on that right now. Yes, that's a great question. Yes, sir.
What's your agency budget?
Ours is kind of a unique deal because we're funded from several different sources. Overall, if you look at it, it's about $3 million. We have a federal contract. Actually, some of my folks are state employees, but they're funded by the federal government. And their agents as well. They do things just a little bit different, but they report to me also. If you put all of our agents together, our whole agency, it's around $3 million. Good question. Yes, sir.
Steve, it may have been more than a few years ago, but there was a push to ban flavored tobacco products like cherry cigars. And first of all, thanks for the vaping law. Because 6-year-olds could go in and buy before that.
Yes, they could,
They could.
and let
those
me tell you.
flavors too, there's so many flavors.
Yeah.
What about the flavors? Because they attract the young.
I will say this, and I'll ask you to burn that recording when I'm done.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but I kind of fancy myself now after spending a year, I kind of think that I'm a vapor expert, a quasi-vapor expert. And I'll say this, I think vapor products will be the greatest cessation product, not cessational, I'm getting my words mixed up there. I think vapor products will be the greatest cessation product of our generation. It will lead more people from traditional stick cigarette off of them than I think any other product. Chantix, the patch, hypnosis, anything. But just like President Kimbrough mentioned there, the flavors, I think it will be the greatest gateway opportunity for the minors of our generation too. And here's why. If you go into a vapor store today, you're going to see flavors like Tutti Frutti and Gummy Bear and Captain Crunch and, you know, other than Bob Leffert, nobody's in their right mind's going to go in and ask for some Tutti Frutti vapor. Yes, found me somebody to pick on. So, you know, that's a problem. However, that 51 votes that I told you that I got in the House, if I'd have put flavors in there, it wouldn't have passed.
Well, imagine somebody not voting for that.
Well, I can't imagine 27 left me, but they did, President Kimbrough.
Oh, I mean,
You know, because here's the thing, not everybody sees it like you do. You know, and some people are going to say, well, flavors, that's a right. You know, and then some people say, well, flavors is what's going to make them come from traditional stick cigarettes. So that's a great question, but it's not a lift that we could accomplish in the last session.
Is it any healthier to vape than just to smoke, except for the lungs? I mean,
Well, that's unknown at this point in time, and you said except for the lungs, there's actually some studies coming out that it may be worse for your lungs because the items that are in vapor, especially the food products, are FDA approved for consumption. We don't know about inhalation yet, and so there are studies. I mean, you can read studies that say yes, it's much safer, and you can read an alternative study that says no, it's not even safe. That's a great question. Anyone? Yes, sir, David.
You're talking about cutting the tax.
Uh-huh.
If I recall correctly, the reason why the tax in Arkansas partly is so high is to sort of act like a deterrent. So if you're cutting the tax, you say it would be revenue neutral, it would seem to me like you're incenting people to go out and smoke more.
Well, here's the thing. When the tax was raised, retail consumption did not go away. And so what happens, David, is that the dishonest retailers are still selling to the general public. They're just going to Mississippi, Tennessee, and Missouri now and buying it and bringing it back across the border. So retail consumption didn't go away. I don't suspect that retail consumption will go up any higher with it cheaper. I just think that we will truthfully get all of our tax instead of only getting the part that the honest retailers are willing to, buy from a legitimate wholesaler. Again, looking at it from a 50,000 up above the air view, I could say could easily be as high as $50 million annually that's being smuggled into the state.
So when the tax went up, it did not cut.
The smuggling went up when the tax went up dramatically.
But it
Yes.
did not cut.
No, sir. At retail, there's been no significant drop off at retail from use. No, sir. Yes, sir.
I remember a few years ago that individuals would buy cigarettes through the mail from like North Carolina.
Yes, sir. That's illegal.
Is that still happening?
Well, if you know it is, please call me and we'll go see them. We'll discourage them from doing that. How's that? What's your address? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Yes, sir. It is illegal to ship in to the state of Arkansas cigarettes or tobacco products. Yes, sir. It is.
Steve?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
No, sir.
It's been a long time since I was in retail and we didn't have the tax stamp. I don't remember cigarettes were 79 cents, so that's how long.
That has been a while. Yes, sir.
How can we as consumers, can we see, can we record? Because I wouldn't know
Sure.
what to look for.
I'll give you
box of cigarettes.
yes, absolutely. I'll give you a funny story. One of my and don't let us run long. You tell me when to stop. One of our agents was teaching down at Alita, down at Camden a few weeks ago, and we teach a class because here's the thing: if a state trooper stops a consumer in a car coming back on I-40 from Memphis, and they notice that the trunk is full of tobacco. They may say, the person may produce an invoice, and if it's a Tennessee invoice, that product is still illegal. The average state trooper doesn't realize that, and through no fault of their own, as an agency, we've never taught them that. So now we're down at Camden and we're teaching them that. But my agent said, you know, he talked about the stamp on the pack. And in a room full of law enforcement guys, there were several smokers in there. And so he said, you know, get your packs out and let's look. One of the law enforcement officers had a Mississippi stamp on a pack of cigarettes. And he said, well, wait a minute, my stamp's not the same as y'all's. And so my enforcement guy, he said, well, where'd you buy those? And he said, well, I bought them in Pine Bluff. And so we immediately went and visited that little place in Pine Bluff. Now here it was simply a wholesale area. The wholesaler that stamps them, cigarettes are stamped at the wholesale level. The wholesalers have to buy the rolls of stamps from the state of Arkansas. They run them through a stamp machine, they're stamped at the wholesale level. The wholesaler, instead of shipping 2 boxes to a store in Mississippi, got the boxes backwards. He sent the 2 boxes that were supposed to go to the Arkansas store to the Mississippi store, and the 2 boxes that were supposed to go to the Mississippi store to the Arkansas. Simply a human error there on the picker and the loader that sent it out. But we challenged the wholesaler to do a little better job, and I think they will in the future. So that's a great question, but yes, you can tell. Arkansas's is a blue stamp right now. If you're a smoker, it'll be a little blue medallion on the bottom of your pack. So, any other questions? Well, thank y'all very much for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
So Steve, what we do for our speakers in appreciation for being here, our club picks a project each year. And so our project this year is the newspapers and education program through the log cabin. So we'll be donating 50 newspapers in your honor to that program, and they'll be used in classrooms
Very good.
here in Conway. So
Very good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next week is a program by the Arkansas State Police. Thank you to Vance for helping coordinate this program. So we hope to see you next week. Are there any announcements before we adjourn? Remember the pancake breakfast, district conference, the roadside cleanup project through John's Church, and then I also put save the date cards for the Central Baptist College benefit dinner that's coming up in about a month. So if there's any fishermen in the crowd or you know anyone that could use some fishing tips, fish fry, silent auction, fishing seminar by Larry
You know,
Nixon.
the auction items are not just fishing.
Right.
All kinds of outdoor.
No cigarettes.
We gotta check those.
All right, well, if you stand, we'll be adjourned with the 4-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it be true? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Is it developed? See you next week.
Service Tour. And it's Conway Community near you, April 17th through 19th. Pastor Bill Andre, Christian Secretary located in Knoxville, Tennessee, will sing about TV across the entire Mid-South District as the Lutheran Church Missouri Center. Stopping in 10 cities along the way to participate in spiritual service. With people like you. Disciples Faith Group is on equal alongside the Mid-South District's 50th year ministry. The communication, the Southern District's model is Christ, and serve the community in His name.
Great news is our God remains the same and our message remains the same. We continue to preach Christ crucified and risen from the dead.